So, Steve,
Yes, Eric.
please refer to your script. This is something that I find myself talking about more and more of late.
What's that, Eric?
Just read you have like two lines. I find that in having a channel and a podcast and an email list and all the things called Make Music Income, that it's easy for me to lose sight of something that is just as important to me as music.
Okay.
The script was a bad idea. I think it's all too easy to get so caught up in what income music might make us that we kind of forget to actually share our music in the first place, or worse. I fear we might toil away in obscurity for years, if not decades, without letting our friends and family even know we do music. And I'm not talking about you and me. We don't do that necessarily, but even you and I feel that we should be releasing more to Spotify, to YouTube, to libraries. And if we feel that way, so certainly everyone else should feel that way. Well, welcome everyone to this badly scripted so far. This won't be scripted throughout this thing. But I think important topic of making sure your music is out there. And if nothing more than pure legacy reasons of having your music out where it can be found, I think it's a travesty. Some people are not getting things done. They're not getting out there. They're dealing with burnout and things like that. And I want to talk about those things on today's show. But before we dive into all this serious stuff and what it means, let's hear from a guy who has plenty of music out there, not exactly an actor, but trying with all his might to get more stuff out. Mr. Stevie B, what's been going on, man?
Hello. That was part of the script too. Okay, clearly.
It was? Oh, I didn't say.
Clearly, I'm not. I don't have a career as an actor ahead of me. So yeah, what's going on? Speaking of Spotify and putting music out there, I'm putting something out there tomorrow. Sticking with
Cool.
my schedule for the year, every second Friday, putting a tune out,
Nice.
putting a single out called "The More That I Know," and that was something that I talked about probably. I can't remember, like maybe even like 5-6 months ago, and it was that.
Is this just you, or is it your guy?
No,
that
it's
you're
it's something I wrote, and then I hired a vocalist from Sound Better to sing
Oh,
on.
cool.
Great vocalist. She did an awesome job, and yeah, it's just something a little bit different for me to do. So I'm putting that out there tomorrow, and yeah, what's been going on? Oh yeah, so something I was going to chat about with you here, and I haven't told you this yet, but I've been kind of working on this master plan.
Uh-oh.
Long story short, I've been kind of complaining to my wife for like the better part of the last year, maybe more, about how I never have the time to do some of these like really important things that are on the checklist. And you know about the checklist. I mean, the checklist is based on my checklist is basically your checklist, and this is the all the things that should happen once you finish a song in terms of like getting it out there and all that stuff, right? What really gets me, and what I tend to neglect, is like the administrative stuff for the most part. So I'm in the process of creating a training program and offloading some of these tasks to a virtual
Interesting.
assistant. And this is something I've been toying with this idea for quite a while. And I had a really, really great chat with one of the members of the academy, and she's like a project coordinator for like big companies, and has been doing this for years. And she really encouraged me to start thinking about this. And offloading some of my, some of the stuff that I really struggle with because of my, I'm so stretched for time. You know, I'm good at
I
finishing
know.
the tracks. I'm good at writing music. I can get it done pretty quickly, but everything else, man, I really stink at it. And it's tough for me to get it out there. Like, you know, you've heard me complain a million times about just something as simple as like getting it out to Pond 5. I never have the time. Getting it out to Audio Jungle. It's like, it's not that I have anything against putting it on Audio Jungle. I just literally just don't ever have the time to do it. So
It's not a quick process. Audio Jungle
It's not.
is a little involved.
well, you add them all up, you know, and it's like, it's quite a bit. And so, I mean, it could, and it's like everything. I mean, it's like putting it on SoCan, like my PRO, putting it on with Song Trust. I just told you, like, a week ago, it's like, you were like, have you put up any songs, or have you registered
Like, how much have you made,
Song
Steve?
Trust? I'm like, I don't know. I haven't uploaded any material, and it's just a real problem for me, and I'm always whining about it
as well.
TuneSat.
TuneSat is another thing.
Yeah, man. So anyway,
Identify.
I've decided to do something about it. It's going to cost me a bit of money, but I really think it's going to be worth it, and it might pay itself back in the long run anyway if I just have someone help me to put the music out there. So that's something I'm working on. And otherwise, yeah, I mean, I wrote several tracks for Motion Array this last week. I'm trying to catch up with them. I've been kind of neglecting them for like, a little while. I haven't sent them much. So, trying to write material that is going to work well for them, and we'll see how that goes. Trailer Course Part 3 is in the works right now. Part 2 went out last week, and that's all been going well. The students seem to be enjoying that. And, man, that's about it for me this last week. Yeah. What's going on with you?
Well, I finished a quirky song for a library brief. I had a really productive weekend last weekend and got 2 songs done. And one was a quirky song that was for a brief for my BMG library. And I had already delivered a dramedy piece and now delivered a quirky piece. And they're all being listened to by whoever the library is pitching this to, whatever company, or I don't know if it's another library or if it's a show or whatever. But so I finished that. There has been more money in sync this week. BMI deposited, $100 or so into my account today.
Nice.
And so I would imagine that has a few syncs in there. I won't know until I get the statement. I don't think I'll see that till tomorrow, maybe. But anyway, I also got my first sync payment, which was for the grand total of $5.32 from one of my libraries, who just sent me a sync payment and had some royalties from Australia or something like that. So it's that whole thing, Steve. So you're saying there's a chance this could work.
You gotta start somewhere.
Any kind of stream. I've heard Jesse talk about this a lot. He talks about seeing that first $16 check or $5 check or $6 check, have come in, and that kind of thing that can snowball as you get more and more and more stuff in there. So my library, the same library I'm talking about that just paid me this sync and I just did this brief for, the owner went online this week and talked about all that he's got planned for the library, and it's exciting stuff, and including revving up Los Angeles again, both from him and his partner, to really get more into shows and get shows and networks that we're working exclusively for. So Excellent. Really cool stuff that is happening with that library. I just am waiting to see when my first album with another library that I delivered finally, and they got all the paperwork and everything, the percussion thing I just did for them. We'll see when that gets up on that library, and then if I can start working on something else for them. I also last week finished a corporate song that I sent to non-exclusive libraries. It's already in Audio Jungle and Pound 5 and waiting for Motion Array. And I have a question to ask you about Motion Array, and we'll just let everybody hear this, but I already put it up there. It's been up there for about 6 days. Probably got another 5 or 6 days. Are they still running about 12 days for you, or do you know?
Yeah, it's about 10 days. Yeah. I haven't been keeping track, but it's a while, yeah.
Well, here's a question. If I listened to it again today and I was like, oh, it's a little dull. Can I take down the song and put it up before they listen? If I don't,
you can edit the submission. I don't think it resets the queue position.
Okay.
I could be wrong about that though. It's been a while since I did that. I did that one time, but it was only to edit like some of the actual like metadata of the track, and it didn't change the queue. But it was a long time ago. So.
Okay. Well, we'll see if it does this time or not. I think I might listen to it again and resubmit it if I have time before they look at it. So that's there. I don't, even with doing these briefs and putting stuff into these libraries, I still find myself wanting to compose what I call pursue composing proper, really just composing for composing's sake, on some things and not just for briefs. Mm-hmm. I just find myself longing to create something more I don't know, obtuse than commercial music, let's just say. A little less commercial, a little bit more just out there, a little bit more. So I'm probably working on that some. I had a very popular stock music video go out this week, and it's one of those that took off a little bit faster than most, but stock music videos tend to do that.
Is stock music still worth it?
Yeah, I don't really do that many stock. We're talking less and less about stock these days, even though we've just been sitting here talking about it. But for the most part, I think we both feel that it's, it is what it is, and we're moving on towards other kinds of licensing, or trying to.
To be honest, when I watched it, and I thought that the end result was going to be no. And when you kind of surprised me when you said yes, because I was like, oh, I think he's going to say no.
That was kind of the point I wanted to lead everybody down. This thing says, forget it. You don't need to be doing it. And I do still think it's important that people can use it as a tool to be better in licensing. That might be its best use right now for a lot of people, because it's so competitive, and because if you are not writing for the exact uses that the libraries like Motion Array wants, then you likely won't get as big checks as people who are writing specifically for those things they want, for those YouTubers who are going there looking for videos and things like that. So I think that is, but there's another use beyond music income, beyond being the cool kid in town, with the cool living room video kind of stuff with this microphone, holding his microphone. We all can't be cool like that. So sometimes
Sure
there
you
are
can.
going to be... Hello, everyone, and welcome to my living room. Tonight on Vancouver Nights.
I should have put my crooner voice on full effect. Hello.
That was your very interesting video from last night.
Yeah.
Where he also sings, ladies and gentlemen. Stevie sings.
I actually had a little clip of me singing the part
Yeah.
that I was talking about in the video, and I just got rid of it because it looked so silly.
Well, it sounded good. That's the only thing. All right, and so that happened. And then the other big thing that's happened to me this week is yesterday I've had a tooth that has been bothering me for years, back molar, and it has had 3 root canals,
Oh man.
all of which I would have again instead of what happened yesterday was getting this tooth pulled, which felt like the dentist might as well had her foot on my mouth and a pair of pliers. That's what it felt like. I mean, it was so painful. Now I know why this is used as torture in some countries, because it is like the most painful thing.
Yeah.
And I have
is.
a high pain threshold, but this was beyond. And at one point I must have yelled out or something. She goes, Mr. Copeland, please don't scream. You'll scare the other patients we have here.
Didn't they put some local anesthetic in you, or what?
Yes, but there was just so much pressure, and it had a little infection, and we don't need to go into too much of that. But it was just really super painful, and
Man.
pressure was just more than just like poking and needles. It was pulling. You're pulling something out of a bone out of another bone. Basically, It's not nothing.
It's not
nothing.
I feel you, man. I've had dental issues plague me my whole life. I had an abscess in my root canal in my front tooth, so they had to pull that right out of my mouth using one of those, I don't know what it is, some tool that basically like this clamp, and then one person holding my head down, the other person yanking the tooth out of my mouth. It was the infection in my root canal was one of the most painful things I've ever experienced in my whole life.
Those nerves in your mouth are crazy sensitive, and
Yeah.
it's just make you miserable. So welcome to Make Dentistry Income today. But it was rough, but it's over. It's gone.
Yeah, when it's
It's
gone.
clear, and hopefully
a relief.
everything will clear up. One thing that did happen this week is I had a consult with one of my composer mastermind students, and he has such great compositions, but he's really not sharing them with anyone other than those of us, a few here or there in the mastermind or whatever. And so I find that I spend a lot of time just encouraging him and to get things finished. But it started to I've heard this a lot more lately about people being discouraged, people having trouble finishing things, and therefore causing them some measure of burnout and some measure of feeling like they're not successful in making music, and then and miles away from making music income because they feel like they can't get over the hump to finish songs in the way they want them to be finished. And so I thought today what we would talk about is more than just music income. We have to get back a little bit to what is going on with everyone, and starting with the struggle to finish tunes, which is more real than you would think it is. I know probably a lot of you out there are nodding your head right now because you're like, yeah, that is the biggest problem I have. And I think one of the things that we run into is that it's almost easier to keep something unfinished because there's a beauty in being able to say, well, this is just a rough mix. So I don't really, there's no pressure in a rough mix because you say, wow, it's just a rough mix. It's rough. And so by saying that, you kind of give yourself a little bit of leeway as to how good it sounds to whoever you're showing it to. And therefore, you don't feel like you're such a failure for not finishing it the way it needs to be finished. What are your thoughts about that?
So funny. I was just having a conversation with one of the members. I was doing a Zoom chat with one of the members of the Academy yesterday. We had a great discussion about this very topic. And speaking of rough mixes, it's hilarious because I was telling her about how early on in my sort of production career, I had this opportunity to do this some scoring work, and it was really light scoring work for Patagonia, and they needed this basically just acoustic guitar, like finger picked acoustic guitar, really easy stuff for me to do. And of course, I would overthink the hell out of it, and I would compose these quote unquote rough sketches, and I would send them to the director, and I'd be like, hey, just so you know, this is a rough sketch. It's a rough idea. This isn't complete. I just wanted to send you this idea so you get a sense of what I'm thinking, and like, let me know what you think. And she got back to me and she'd be like, what do you mean this is perfect? And I'd be like, oh, well, there's birds chirping in the background. It's not like recorded properly. There's ambient noise. She's like, no, this is great. I'm just using this. I'm going to use this. I'm like, are you sure? Are you sure? And she's like, yeah, this is absolutely great. Like she's like, I want rough. Like I want raw. And I was like, oh, okay. And I realized looking back on it that I just needed that little bit of encouragement and feedback from someone to trust that, like my intuition was in the right place about the composition, and that also I didn't need to obsess about all of these needless details about trying to get like capture the perfect recording. It was fine as it was, and I think maybe the case for a lot of people is that they have this. It's they just get obsessed about things that don't really matter, and that kind of bottlenecks the process. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, and those kind of things you cure real quick when you start to work for clients. Because you have to get stuff done and you have to finish or you don't get paid.
Yes,
and
exactly.
I think that's what helped me learn to finish. I could not finish for the life of me when I was, back before I did music for a living, and I would think of all these ideas, and it was all well and good, but I never finished a project. It just, it was an idea that on paper, and never, I was never even able to put it out in any kind of form, whether it was cassette or CD or download or whatever. I never finished it because I would start and I'd be like, it's not sounding that great. And even if I got it somewhat close, I'd be like, well, I could still work on it more. And then you tend to put stuff back on the back burner and just leave it there. And before we know it, we have 1,000 things on the back burner and nothing finishing. And sometimes there has to be a reason for it. And we're going to get into those reasons, distribution and libraries and all those kind of things.
Do you think it's a vulnerability issue to some extent? Because I think it's like, as long as we can keep convincing ourselves that something extra needs to be done, it's not quite ready, then it's like a shield. It's a way of shielding our vulnerability against like putting it out there and actually having people listen to it and give us feedback and like possibly not liking it. You know what I mean? It's like it's if we keep it in a process where it never gets finished and it never goes out there, then we don't have to worry about feeling vulnerable about it.
Yeah. And also, we're afraid that someone's going to tell us there's still work to do, and we don't want to do any more work. We want it to be kind of done. I showed off a song today in our mastermind, and it was done. I had already submitted it to the brief. There's nothing more that can be, I mean, I could go back and play with it and mess around with it more. But if it's accepted by this library or to this brief, then I'm done. I mean, there's nothing else to do to it. I don't have to do anything else to this song because I've already finished it. It's done. And yes, I could make different decisions. I could speed it up. I could add this. I could bring more this in. But guess what? It doesn't matter anymore because I've already submitted to that use. And I think that's another reason to finish and put it out somewhere, put it up to Spotify. Once it's on Spotify, what are you going to do? Take it down and remix it and put it back out to Spotify? And once you've sent it to a library or to a brief or whatever, it's sent, it's done. And there's a freedom in that. And I think most people don't get there because they're like, well, something could still be done. Well, sure, stuff could still be done. Yeah. But I think one of the next things that they deal with in trying to finish songs is they don't understand the mastering process or think it's some big, scary thing that is totally beyond their capabilities, that it's only mastering engineers can do this. And the thought of going from a rough mix to a finished mix means you need to understand how to master audio. And I think this is a pretty common misconception that you really don't. I mean, especially when there are tools like Ozone out there. Ozone Elements you can get for $100 or less, I think. Sometimes you can get it for way cheaper than that. And put that thing on there and hit the mastering button and let it do its job, and boom, you will have gotten it to a place where it's almost ready to go. It's simply, the simplicity of it is amazing. And totally. I think that's just a 5-minute lesson on a YouTube video to learn how to mess with that thing, and then quit using that as an excuse to not finish songs and say, well, this is rough because I don't know mastering and I don't know how to finalize it and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, well, I don't think it's a valid excuse to say that, I don't know enough about mastering, so I'm not going to put it out there. It's really not valid. I mean, there's an unlimited amount of resources on YouTube to just learn about it if you want. Mm-hmm. But yeah, like you said, I mean, like we have tools now that are designed for people who don't really know anything about it. And it's literally, I mean, on Ozone itself, you could say it'll ask you, it has a mastering assistant that'll ask you, what's the destination here? Is it streaming? Is it CD? Is it vinyl? And you can, it's really, really straightforward. It's pretty darn easy to get your track to,
was it you or somebody else that said they use some of the presets sometimes?
I use presets from Ozone all the time. Yeah. Almost always. And do a little bit of tweaking on them sometimes. But yeah, I mean, definitely I use the presets for sure.
But Ozone Elements, it's not even as much as Ozone Standard. You start getting more things, but Ozone Elements, which is like a cheap tool, it's like got 3 things. And EQ and finalizing are the main ones. It's also got a kind of an expansion tool, but really it just does the EQ and compression or limiting, which is really all you need to be doing at that stage anyway.
Right.
Remember that mastering is not remixing. It's just finishing up what you've already mixed. It's putting that final bit of sheen on it, if you will, or finalization process where it kind of just makes sure it's loud enough, make sure the EQ is just about right, and you can mess with that. But I don't think you need to over EQ when you're mastering either. But it's just a quick process. I spend literally 5 minutes mastering songs, probably, if that, just because I have settings set up. And once you have Ozone, or I use 2 Waves plugins, and once I have those set, it's pretty cut and dried as to what needs to happen there.
I think so. I think where people maybe get confused sometimes is like where the gain management levels, where levels should be before they add the mastering stuff, because sometimes it'll be pretty cranked. There'll be no headroom on the stereo out, and then they'll add mastering and things just get like super crushed. So that's something you got to be aware of. But yeah, I mean, as long as you have like a sufficient amount of headroom on your stereo out channel before you add your final limiter, then I think that you're in a good spot. So
I think one of the next problems that people have is everybody, including you and me, we say, I want to put more stuff out. Let's say you're able to finish the songs and you're able to master them and you're fairly happy with what you have. You're done. You finished the song. Now what do you do to get it out there? Now let's just leave licensing alone for a minute and just talk about, if you've made music, what are you going to do with it? Because finishing a song, if it's not for a brief or for a client, then it's probably for yourself. It's probably for your brand of artistry, whatever that is, whether it's a personal brand or some other kind of brand. So you've got to put it where someone can find it, and that means you've got to put it out there either for distribution or for viewing. And distribution we think of as going to Spotify, Apple Music, Pandora, all those kind of places that your music can get to by going through a music distributor. And we could talk about YouTube and all that other kind of stuff too. But right now, let's just talk about the simple ways to get your music out once you finish it and to feel like that people are seeing and hearing it. Again, not so much about making money from Spotify, because everybody's going to say, oh, there's no money to be made from Spotify. Well, whatever. Let's just talk about getting your music out into the world so that people can experience it, and again, you leave some sort of legacy, which I think is a big deal.
Yeah.
So one of the problems I find that people are really intimidated by the distribution process. I can't imagine how to get it up there, and it's got to be very, very hard. And this is not going to be a commercial for DistroKid, but something like DistroKid or even CD Baby, any of these, it's a 10 to 15 minute process tops to put a song out there. DistroKid may be even shorter than that once you get down with it. Yeah.
Oh yeah, less.
It's like one page that you just fill out everything. As a matter of fact, I said this in my video about putting your music out to Spotify, but I was like, at the end of it, it says, that was easy, wasn't it? And it kind of is, because it only takes one sheet that you have to fill out. Choose your options and go. It's not a lot.
Yeah, DistroKid's great. I mean, it's like $20 a year or something like that, and it's unlimited amounts. I mean, it's you pay extra for some more you'll get options, like you can plan when the release will come out.
I pay $35 a year.
Yeah, I pay
per
something
year,
like that too.
just for the year, and that basically covers me up to. I think I have 2 or 3 different brands inside that for that price, and I can schedule the day it comes out. For the $20 one, you can't schedule it, but I don't think. But everything else you get for free. Now, I do have to say that CD Baby has been at about $4.99 for the past, I don't know, seems like 6 months. But they've had a special for $4.99. You could put your single or album out,
Okay.
And it includes an ISR. No, and it includes a not an ISRC, but the barcode, the UPC code. And they used to charge for that. Now they're moving up. I think today or next day is the last day of that pricing, and they are moving up to $9.99 for any single or album. And
Right.
it used to be $14.99 before this. So they've adjusted their prices down to $9.99, and there's no yearly fee. It's just every time you put an album out or an EP out or a single out, it's $9.99. So now they do take a percentage after that, versus DistroKid, who takes nothing other than their yearly fee from what you put out there. But any of these are not hard. What's the other one I use? Amuse. Very easy interface to use to put your stuff out there, and really nice. And I think people are just afraid that the learning curve is too steep, and they'll just never be able to figure it out. And I'm here to tell you, it's not. Even though I do it all the time, obviously, for my job and as for my own music, but you can do it. What do you think?
Well, I think that it's maybe people have this perception that it's complicated, but also maybe Spotify is intimidating for other reasons, like just putting music out there in general is an intimidating notion for some folks, and I get that. I used to put my tracks up on SoundCloud before Spotify, and that felt like kind of a Spotify light to me. And I still do that. I still nurture my SoundCloud profile a little bit, and there's some stuff on my SoundCloud that you can't even find on Spotify. I don't even really know why I put music on SoundCloud. I don't know. It's just
Well,
there.
it's a way
There's
to
people
share
that
music.
follow me, and people will listen to it. I think like ultimately at the end of the day, you don't have to do anything. You don't have to put your music out there at all if you're just writing for yourself. But I don't think that's what the people listening to this podcast are have in mind. I think most of us want people to hear our music. We want to get it out there, and I think that the expectations have to be low going into Spotify and SoundCloud. It's like you said, it's difficult to make money, but it's not really about money. It's I think it's more about just getting your mind in you have to get into the mindset of just regularly putting stuff out there. That's what we do. We just put our stuff out there. That's what we do when we upload to music libraries. It's what we do when we're on YouTube. It's what we do when we're using DistroKid. You're just putting it all out there for the world, and no one thing is guaranteed to do well. But every now and then you strike a chord with somebody, and you might get a little bit of momentum, whether that be a Spotify playlist or a video on YouTube that does really well or whatever. We're always kind of just throwing things out there, and then every now and then something does well, and it's just a matter of doing it regularly. That's all.
I think it's just a crime, a real crime, that people are creating really quality music and it's only existing on their hard drive. And this is the kind of person I'm talking to right now about finishing and mastering these songs up and then getting them out into the world. If you're sending them to libraries, then fine. But even putting something in a library where it's just going to sit on Pond 5 shelves and maybe never be heard, I mean, that's a step. And we'll talk about that next. But I think that Spotify is the new record store. It's where people are going to stumble across your music. If they're ever going to stumble across it, it's there. Now, we could also talk about online solutions like YouTube, SoundCloud, like you talked about. Bandcamp is another great platform to put your music on. That none of those really cost anything. I mean, you could spend money on them if you want to, but they don't really cost anything to put them up to. SoundCloud, Spotify and DistroKid doesn't cost much. It's not, so there should be no monetary barrier. But I hope that what I'm getting at here is the fact that you will just try to get your stuff out to distribute your music. I know somebody just told me on my channel the other day in a comment, I'm taking everything down from Pond 5 and I'm taking everything down from Spotify. And I'm like, why? I don't understand the why. And sometimes it's because they feel like they're not making anything from it, so why bother? But that's the wrong. I know for a channel and a podcast called Make Music Income, this is not a very popular thing to say, but I just feel like there's more than just making income from it. There's a legacy standpoint. If you disappear from this earth tomorrow, who will know and continue to find your music? And if it's nowhere, then nobody.
Man, for that the guy that you're speaking with about this, who's is maybe feeling like he, a bit precious about material, not wanting to put it out there. Like, look, there's stuff I've put out on Spotify, on music libraries, wherever, that I listen back now and I cringe a bit, and I think that you just have to accept that you're not going to love everything that you put out into the world, but also those things, some of those things that I put out there that now I listen to and I cringe a bit. I'm just like, oh God, especially my band stuff, my early band material. They're kind of like photographs, they bring me back to a certain place in time in my life, and they feel very nostalgic to listen to them, even if I don't really like them. And I'm happy that I put it out there, even though I don't totally connect with whatever part of me wrote that song in that moment. It's just a little record of time, and I'm glad that I put it out there, even if I don't love it. So that's something to consider too. Just think of your songs as just like little photographs of where you were. And also it's cool to go back and listen to your old stuff and be like, damn, I've gotten a lot better, because I guarantee you will improve if you keep doing it regularly. And it's interesting for me to go back and listen to my old songs and see where I've improved. And it makes me feel good,
I think there was a reason for it. I can't remember if it was to go completely exclusive only or whatever. And to be honest with you, I am now having some libraries, including my largest one, say do not put this stuff on Spotify.
Okay.
Because the BMG is putting it on Spotify, so you can't put it on Spotify.
Right.
And sometimes you can make videos, but sometimes you can't because of Content ID. So if you do make a video and put it up on YouTube, that's fine, but you won't be able to monetize it. And because it might be monetized by whoever the library is monetizing. So, I see reasons not to send stuff to distribution, but for the most part, I don't, especially those people who are only doing stock or non-exclusive music. Put that stuff out to Spotify and apologize later to whoever wants it and say, hey, sorry, it's already on Spotify. And guess what? You can take stuff down off Spotify real quickly as well. So,
you can.
All right, so let's move on to the next thing. And the next thing is people are not confident in their music for libraries. They're afraid that the library wants something higher end than what they do. They think that they just have this imposter syndrome, thinking there's no way I'm a good enough composer to put stuff out to these libraries. And so they don't even try to send an email to say, what do you think of this? The same guy I was talking to yesterday is really talented at dramedy type cues. And I said, dude, I've heard 2 or 3 already. You could take those and a few more and put them on a SoundCloud or something like that and send that to a library and say, hey, I really enjoy creating this kind of stuff. I see you use this in your library. I would love to create some of this for you. And that is a way for a library to go, wow, you really can do this. This stuff is great. But convincing him to do that is difficult. And I don't even think it's because he's too busy, but it's just, again, that imposter syndrome is like, am I really good enough? These are just little short things that I wrote for this or that. And should I really should I really take that chance? And I'm thinking, what chance? I mean, what's it going to cost you? It's going to cost you 0 except your time. And the risk is only that they might say, no, thank you. But that's just one library. There's tons more to try after you pitch to that one library. So.
Yeah, and a lot of the libraries that say no thank you, they're not even closing the door on you. They're just saying, maybe not now, but try again, in a few months or something like that. I mean, they're in the business of putting good music on
curating.
It's not like you can't get better, It's not like that you're going to get blacklisted. I think that's a misconception. Is that they're going to be like, oh no, this guy, let's put him on the blacklist, and
they don't have time to blacklist things.
No, they don't have time,
got
man.
enough to do.
They won't even remember you in the next time you apply. They'll be like, oh, you'll be like a brand new person. So it's like. I felt that way before I sent music to Artlist. I thought I'm probably not good enough because I was listening to a lot of the music on the catalog, and some of it is just so insane. It's just so good. And I'm like, I'm sending them these dinky lo-fi tracks. I kind of felt good about the tracks, but I also felt intimidated by what I was hearing on the library. And I think that part of what prevented me from sending my music to them for so long was just the fear of them turning me down and me losing the confidence, and it's a thing. It's a real thing. But eventually I sent it to them, and I was lucky, and they liked it. But believe me, I've had so many people turn my music down as well, and I mean it's hard to totally not let any rejection just not get to you at all. It's almost impossible because it's such a personal thing to write music and to have somebody get back to you and be like, no, we don't like it. It's really, really difficult to not take that personally in some way. But man, I'm really I've been really inspired by some of the folks in the Production Music Academy who have applied 3 times to Motion Array, got rejected twice, and then made it in on the 3rd try. I mean, that's resolve, man. That's really not giving up, and that's the kind of attitude you have to have. And we all need more of that, man. We all need to just grow a thicker skin and get over it, because you're not going to be able to please everybody. Not everyone's going to like your music. That's just the way the world works.
Yeah, and not only that, but I think a lot of the libraries that have said no to me have been good. They have turned out to be pretty nice about it. They're like, no, man, this isn't what we're looking for, but it's all very good quality. But what we, and one of the libraries is way more score based, and I was sending them not score based stuff, even though it was high quality. But they were looking for score based stuff, maybe try to trailers and stuff like that. I wasn't doing that, but they were really nice to say, "Hey, love your quality. If you're ever doing this kind of thing, get back." Or, the library is undergoing a kind of a changeover right now. Get back to us in 6 months or so, like that. So,
Right.
even if it's a no, it could be kind of a yes. And so I think that's another thing, but you got to try. But then what happens is you go through all the stuff. You're having trouble finishing stuff. You're part of a bunch of groups. You're on masterminds. You're part of this cool guy's academy, and you're doing all these kind of things. But you just feel like you're spinning your wheels, and then we hit the dreaded burnout. And now a lot of people hit this and they say, I'm just not having any success. I don't really know which direction to go in. And I think this is specific to creatives. I think creatives are the people who deal with this probably more than anyone else. I think everybody can get burnout in their job, but burning out on the love of doing something, which is usually a creative type of task like writing or music or art or something like that. It feels more personal because it's your passion that you're burning out on, and it totally makes you feel like you are a complete failure at something because you don't even feel like doing it anymore. How can you do all these things that we're pushing people to do, libraries and Spotify, and finish your mixes, if you just don't feel the passion for it? And I'm here to tell you, and Steve will probably echo this, but I have felt that so many times that I can't even tell you how many times. And for 50 years, I've gone through these phases. And what works for me personally is moving on to another creative thing. I do other creative things besides music, or video games, or something else that feeds that kind of fun that I want to have, or working out, playing basketball, or writing fiction, or something like that. There are other things that I do. But I think I have an answer for burnout. But tell me how you struggle with burnout?
Well, I would say almost the exact same thing. It's like, for me, I just need to remove myself from the situation and move my body. I find that getting like just a little bit of exercise, going to get some fresh air, taking long walks, spending, going on hikes with my wife. There's just so many other things that, are just beautiful parts of everyday life that require attention. And I think that, at least for me, I tend to work myself to, overwork myself and do really, really long days. And, it's easy for me to get burnt out. You've heard me speak about getting burnt out multiple times, throughout our podcasts. And, I've gotten a little bit better at managing that. And I think I I feel it creeping up every now and then, and I just know that that's like a reminder to go and to go out and take a walk and just put it away and take regular breaks. It's strangely something that like I find it difficult to do sometimes, is to take like regular breaks. I'll just go, and it's no wonder that I burn myself out sometimes. But for sure, man, I don't know if there's no magical solution because everyone's a little different. But if there was any one thing that I think objectively is it works to fight burnout, is just physical exercise. Like get some exercise, man. Go sweat it out. It helps with my stress management so much, and especially as I get older, man. Like, you just absolutely need it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it also, don't feel bad to leave music alone, to just go away from music for a few days.
Yeah,
if
absolutely.
not a week or a few weeks. I mean, listen, if it is the thing you're supposed to be doing, it will never leave. You'll always come back to it. It's the thing I can't not do, but sometimes I don't. I used to get really like upset when I get into writing. Like I wasn't writing. I was having kind of like, what do they call that? I was not able to just come up with anything new that I was interested in. It wasn't that I couldn't sit down and write something new. I could sit down and write something new anytime. But if it doesn't interest me, then I'm going to be like, why?
Like,
why
it
did I
wasn't
even bother?
necessarily writer's block, but you weren't coming up with anything that was like
Nothing
like
inspiring.
you. Yeah, see that's a good point, because sometimes I'll get there too, and it's not really burnout, but it's like it's maybe genre burnout. Like
It could be.
that's the beauty of like diving into other weird genres and experimenting and trying to just like I don't know. That's why I got into like orchestral stuff, because it's like I don't know anything about this. It's like, but it's fun because it's different from, you know, lo-fi hip hop. It's like,
Well, I think the first thing would be for me, if I'm trying to fight burnout, is get away from music completely. Then, if I
Sure.
don't feel like
Yeah.
doing it, then I get away from it. But the second thing is that you have to do for some kind of thing that is fun to you and or interesting to you, like you were just talking about.
Yeah.
Switch over to something else. Now, that thing may not be music. It may be some other creative thing that you do, but it might be music, and that means maybe just play stuff that is fun, that is different. Like go out and do a gig, play at your church, play at school, do something that is different. You know, when I did my master's, I totally was completely out of my element trying to do classical stuff. But eventually I found my own kind of voice with classical music and my contemporary sense. And since then I've continued to have fun and a ball doing that. And when I get really, really like in a trough where I just don't feel like I'm making anything good, I will just try to go back to some weird 12-tone type of way to do things, or just invent new ways to write songs, and those can end up being great things that I never would have written. Or I just sit down and I just play for fun and mess around, and I think that's something that we lose sight of so much when we're in this, especially those of us who make a living in music. Playing for fun is almost like, I don't have time for that. How do I have time to play for fun? I got too much work to do. And that's a problem, and that's one thing that leads us to burnout, I think, a lot of times.
Yeah, totally. I think when I'm having a rough time and feeling burnt out with like a certain type of music, sometimes I'll just write a dramedy track, because it's really easy, and it kind of like makes you feel good, because it's like sort of quirky music anyway, and you usually get it done. I usually get it done in like in a couple hours or something like that, or get a basic idea down, and it just feels good because it's fun, it's easy, it's lightweight.
Yeah, or do whatever your music thing of choice is. Try to be an artistic on it rather than Mr. Composer can play every instrument person, and don't feel that pressure to create all these things. But I think overall, and this seems like a kind of a cop-out answer, but you just have to fight through it. You just have to let it be, accept that you are just feeling burnout, and either do something about it, which means go and do something else for a while and come back to it when you're ready. Or if you don't have the luxury like us to do that all the time, you just say, well, I'm going to fight through this, and then I'll wait for those times. It's a little bit like if you worked another job, let's say you worked at a bank, and you were a banker all day long, and you came home on the weekends and you did music. Well, you still have to go to work every day. Even though, you may be burnt out on it, it's what pays your bills. So you still have to go banking, knowing that you can come home and play with your music. So you might just have to deal with it like it's a job. And I think those of us who do it as a job realize sometimes, hey, I just gotta bear down and do this work because it has to be done, and I don't have a choice because I have to do it. I mean, you pick this music thing, and that's why some people choose to never do it as a job. Some people choose to have another job. Many people in my masterminds have other jobs, and they're not quitting them. They're going to keep doing them because they make them good money and they don't hate them. And it keeps music fresh and music fun all the time, rather than this thing they have to depend on for their income.
Yeah, for sure. And I think obviously there's a lot of people who want music to be their full-time job, but I think when you get there, when it becomes your full-time job, you realize that it's like a job. It's like you kind of have to, you got to deliver, or you got to get to work even when you're not feeling inspired. And that's the weird thing about doing it for a job, is that you really have to treat it as such. And you're just going to be days when you don't feel like, writing the track, but you got to kind of force yourself to do it. And that might feel a little strange for a lot of people who think of music as like something that requires like, you know, a prerequisite amount of like passion and inspiration in order to get started. And when it becomes your full-time job, it's like, dude, you got to deliver. You got to deliver something because somebody's waiting for it, and you don't have time to wait around for inspiration. You got to just like, sometimes you got to be methodical and removed from the inspirational part of the process, and just treat it like it's work. And that's a little uncomfortable for some people. And there's been times where I felt uncomfortable about it too, but that is the nature of being a full-time music producer and composer.
And what's funny is when you do work for some client and you get the job done and you get it done. At first you're like, I'm so glad that's done. You could come back though in a year and listen to that and go, wow, that was pretty
Oh
that
man,
was pretty cool.
So many
that was pretty
times.
inspiring.
So many times. So many times I've sent stuff off that I was like, oh man, this is brutal. And I listened to it a year later. I'm like, oh, that was actually pretty good, you know? And like, I was like, not bad, you know? It's like,
I used to get albums done for clients, and I'd get it done. And I'd be like, oh, I'm so glad that's done. And then 2 months, 3 months later, they'd send me the CD, and I'd listen. And I'd be like, that's actually pretty good.
It's weird,
you know,
and
because I've kind of gotten out of the space of dealing with it, and now I can listen to it as a listener. And I'm like, did I do? Sometimes I'll get stuff back over a year or two ago, or I'll find a file on my hard drive. I'm like, did I do that? Because that sounds pretty good. I don't remember doing that, but it sounds good.
Yeah, the best is when you forgot what you actually you did. You're like, oh, I wish I could, like, I don't even have that session anymore because the hard drive is lost. But I wish I knew what I was doing there because that sounds pretty cool.
Well, I hope this has kind of helped you to look at music as more than just music income. I mean, obviously on a channel called Make Music Income, we're trying to think about that. But I hope maybe this has helped you think about some things like legacy and your place with music rather than just what you can make and how that defines you. And I hope that you will really try hard to make sure that you are making the music you want to make and taking your time, being good to yourself, finishing songs, getting them out there so that the world can hear them. We all are waiting for your music. And you might, again, we didn't talk about this, but one of the reasons you may not be putting things out is you think there's enough music out there. Everybody is making music. Why should I make it? Well, you're sitting here listening to this podcast or watching this, so there must be something that you're seeking to do with this. Go do it and make that music and get it out there more than anything. I hope this has encouraged you to do that some.
Yeah, absolutely. I second that. And these are all really important things to talk about. And people do need a bit of encouragement sometimes. We all need a bit of encouragement. And I hope that just, you know, chatting about this has provided you guys with some encouragement to get it out there and, you know, just let it go. And yeah, like you said, be good to yourself. Don't beat yourself up. And worry about, you know, things being perfect. It's not the right mind space to be in. Nothing's gonna be perfect. You'll probably put it out there, listen to it years from now, and be really happy that you did.
Enjoy doing music, and when you don't, give yourself a break from it, and then come back and continue to enjoy it. Make it something you enjoy. You don't. When you're done watching TV, you don't keep watching TV, even though you're done. You stop. So if you need a break, then take one and don't feel guilty about it, and just do what you need to do. Yeah. Well, everybody, that's all we got today. Thanks so much for watching and listening, and we'll talk to you next time.
Yeah, good chat. Hit us up in the comments. We'll see you soon.
See you guys.